Located at the top of Wisconsin, Bayfield County is considered by many of the locals to be the wild side of the Dairy State. This is a place of majestic beauty, with national treasures that include the Apostle Islands, the natural wonders of its sea caves, and rugged sandstone cliffs that frame the clear waters of Lake Superior. This is Bayfield County Wild.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a throwback edition of Bayfield County Wild. I'm Nancy Christopher.
And I'm Mary Motiff, Director of Bayfield County Tourism. With travel restrictions in place all over the country to help stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus, we're doing our part to keep our distance.
So instead of interviewing a new guest, we've decided to air a slightly edited version of a previous episode this month, but we hope to be back in May with a new episode.
We're looking forward to inviting visitors back to relax and enjoy this beautiful area. These are challenging and uncertain times for small local businesses that are heavily dependent on tourism for their income.
So, Mary, if people are able, how can they help?
The main way to help right now is with gift cards and online purchases. We'd also like to know what you love most about Bayfield County and what you look forward to when everyone is able to come back. It'd be great if you could share your thoughts on the Bayfield County Tourism Facebook page or tag us on Instagram.
And in the meantime, we invite you to take a listen to one of the things we both love about this county, its forests. Much of Bayfield County is forested, 83% of it to be more precise. The Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest has 1.5 million acres of water and woodland area to enjoy. And here to tell you how to get the most out of your visit to the forest is Recreation Manager Jennifer Maziasz. Thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thanks for inviting me.
So tell us what you do for the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest.
I am the Recreation Program Manager for the Washburn Ranger District, and that's the northernmost district on the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest. So we're kind of sectioned into different ranger districts, and this particular one is the one up in Bayfield County.
What makes this forest a national treasure?
Well, I might be a little biased because I've worked on this particular forest for 20 years, but really, from my perspective, it's a treasure just like it is with all national forests. It's the people's land. It's for the public. Our motto is caring for the land and serving the people. So we manage the national forest for conservation, recreation. As you talked about earlier, there's 1.5 million acres. So you can find a little bit of everything on the Chequamegon-Nicolet. So
yeah, that's a big forest.
It is, and in our fast-paced world that we live in, just to have a place that you can go to for solitude, unplugging, and really just, connecting back to nature.
So, Jen, what are some of the ways you can enjoy the forest?
The National Forest, we manage for multiple uses. So like I said earlier, you can find a little bit of everything. We have miles of motorized trail, hiking trails, biking trails. We have horse trails. You can find solitude, hike to waterfalls. And what's really, unique about the forest too is you can visit a lot of different ecosystems. We have those sugar maple stands that are beautiful in the fall. And the Moquah Pine Barrens is a really unique ecosystem where it has some of the best blueberry picking in the summer. So there's lots of ways to enjoy the National Forest. And a lot of folks come, obviously to camp in the National Forest. And even within our campgrounds, we have smaller campgrounds that have like 15 sites that are pretty remote and what I call a little bit more rustic. We have a couple larger campgrounds. We have one down by Drummond, Wisconsin, named the Two Lakes Campground that has 100 sites. The hosts sell firewood and rent boats. And so there's a little bit of experience for everybody.
You mentioned that Moquah ecosystem. That's pretty rare, correct?
Yeah, the Moquah Pine Barrens is a really unique ecosystem and it sustains by fire. And so over time, we've had less and less of that. And so they say it's an imperiled ecosystem, in the world. And so we have this really unique pine barren ecosystem that comes up into northern Wisconsin. So we have a lot of wildlife species such as the sharptail. We have some rare butterflies that rely on this habitat. So it's a really beautiful open environment. And I guess I've always thought of, we think of coming here to look at the sugar maples and the oak trees in the fall, but the pine barrens ecosystem in the fall is beautiful. The sand cherry turns this beautiful, majestic red. It's just a really unique ecosystem.
And for those who don't know what a sharptail is, it's a grouse.
It is a grouse. Yep, it's a bird. And they need large areas of open landscape to thrive. And so we manage that particular Moquah ecosystem for like wildlife habitat and just in general, that ecosystem and all the species that rely on it.
What are some of the top recreation areas, in your opinion, in the forest?
Boy, that's a tough one. There's countless ones because once again, it kind of depends on your experience. And so lately, I've been talking to a lot of folks who, their families love to go ATVing, and we have beautiful ATV trails. And right now, that is a beautiful way to see the national forest in the fall. We also have beautiful cross country ski trails. So the Valhalla Recreation Area, it's kind of our signature site, I would say, here on the Washburn Ranger District. And we have cross country skiing there, so groomed trails. But now that mountain biking and fat biking has become really popular in the North Woods up here. And so we're working with some partners and we're grooming a piece of that cross country ski trail for fat biking. I would say Long Lake also. It's a small recreation area just outside of Washburn, Wisconsin. Beautiful little lake. It has swimming. And this year, I saw more use out there. I think maybe because our big lake was cold and with all the storms was a little bit muddier than normal.
It's warmer.
Yeah, right. And lots of warmer and lots of paddle sports. I've been out there a couple times where that lake has had paddle boards and kayaks, and it's a really safe place for kids to learn how to, start using some of those paddle boats and stuff like that. So,
And there's a nice trail that goes around the lake just to go on a hike, or sometimes I'll take my dogs for a walk out there, except the last time I did that, the dog jumped off of the boardwalk into the water.
yeah, it gets a lot of use for, definitely people walking their dogs. And even in the winter, if there's one place that right after we get a snowfall, if you want to go for a short little snowshoe or actually even using your boots, you always know that place will be packed down because everyone loves to go to Long Lake to walk that little loop.
Jennifer, since this is a national forest, can you hunt and fish there?
Yeah, hunting and fishing is, as you can imagine, is very popular. Right now, we're getting ready for the hunting season. And so, yeah, you can hunt and fish on the national forest. You just basically follow the same rules as you do for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. So you get your same licensing that you do through the Wisconsin DNR. We do have some specific rules for the national forest, like, for example, with hunting coming up, we ask that folks stay 150 yards from any developed campgrounds or recreation sites or trails or buildings. But I would say the rules are very similar to hunting all through Wisconsin.
You mentioned a lot of the special features of the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest. What is the Managed Forest Law Program?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that because this is where I think the public, and I don't blame anybody for any of this, it gets a little confusing. So we have the national forests, we have national parks, we have the Wisconsin DNR land, we have county land. So the Managed Forest Law Program is actually a program for private land through the Wisconsin DNR. And so you can register your land, and I think there's some different tax benefits and different things that go with that. And so you'd have to talk directly. But I think that's where it gets a little confusing for everyone is there's lots of great land up in the North Woods, and kind of knowing what land you're on is really important. And you can always come into any of the offices to ask for help. And so we have stations. We have the Washburn Ranger District station in Washburn, and there's also a DNR station down in Ashland. The Great Lakes Visitor Center in Ashland is a great resource too, because I know that it does get confusing for everyone of what these different rules are and what these different programs are on all the different public lands that we have.
And are there fees to get into the forest?
Yes, for sure there are some fees in some places, but I first want to say that there's actually not in a lot of places. So you can come into the National Forest, you can drive, you can walk through the woods. There's all sorts of places that you can go that are accessible with no fees. But there are some areas that we do have fees, and they're very well marked. You'll see a big sign that says this is a fee area. And they range from different costs, like a day use area, like we talked earlier about Long Lake. It's a great little spot to go swimming and go hiking. And that's a $5 day use fee area. And then we use the fees that we collect to put back into those sites. So there are some areas that are fee areas, yes. And they're like mostly campgrounds, trailheads, place where there's amenities like restrooms or water or picnic tables. That's typically where the fee areas are.
Now, of that 1.5 million acres in the forest, how much of that is publicly accessible?
I would say the majority of that is publicly accessible.
Wow.
If you think of national forests, we are the only one in the state of Wisconsin. Like out west, there's more national forests per state, and some of them are known for their more larger roadless areas and wilderness areas. We do have the wilderness experiences, but they're a little bit smaller, but most of it's very accessible. And I think the big thing about the National Forest is, like I talked about earlier, is just kind of knowing where you're at. We have a vehicle use map that you can get online on our website or stop in at any office. And that lets you know what roads you can drive on, which ones are open and which ones are closed.
I was just going to say, even the wilderness area that we have here on the Chequamegon-Nicolet, which is the Rainbow Lake Wilderness area, even that is pretty accessible because the North Country National Scenic Trail traverses that area so that you can still get through it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest is, you can get to some places like the Rainbow Lakes Wilderness area. You can park and then you can walk in and still get that solitude that some folks are looking for on a national hiking trail only. But yet you can also, go to some places that are more accessible also. So Mary's correct that you can get into these wilderness areas and still find the solitude.
So is there a specific website we should be looking at, or is there an app for that to find out where we get our permits, all that type of stuff?
The Chequamegon-Nicolet does have a website, so it's www.fs.usda.gov. And then there's the /CNNF. But also, like I said before, stopping in at any ranger district office, we have all sorts of maps. They are staffed with folks that can answer any questions. And I think the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center is a great spot to stop into. They'll give you any information you want on the National Forest and all the other public lands that are in Bayfield County.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And if you'd like to learn more about what to do, where to stay, and where to eat once travel restrictions have been lifted, visit our website at travelbayfieldcounty.com.
And visit us on Facebook.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.